Good evening and welcome into Nice News. His Majesty the King calls on the international community to push for removing all obstacles preventing the free flow of aid into the Gaza Strip. Lebanon's health ministry says at least 274 people have been killed and more than 1,000 others wounded in Israeli strikes that targeted the south of Lebanon. And Israeli occupation forces have killed 24 Palestinians and injured over 60 others in Gaza just in the past 24 hours. To the details, hello and welcome again. His Majesty King Abdullah has met with heads and representatives of a number of NGOs involved in the humanitarian response in Gaza. During the meeting held in New York, King Abdullah called for more efforts to urge the international community to push for removing all obstacles preventing the free flow of aid into Gaza. The King reiterated the need for an immediate and permanent ceasefire and the protection of relief workers, noting that Jordan will continue to provide humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. The meeting was covered ways to increase cooperation between Jordan and international organisations in cooperation with regional partners in order to enhance the humanitarian response and mobilise international support to alleviate the suffering of Gazans. Earlier, His Majesty met with International Monetary Fund Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva and discussed Jordan's efforts to boost economic growth and attract more investment. The meeting, which was held on the sidelines of the 79th session of the UN General Assembly meetings in New York, covered ways to implement economic and development priorities aimed at improving Jordan's business environment, creating job opportunities and enhancing women's participation in the labour market. His Majesty affirmed Jordan's continued implementation of financial reforms to bolster the economy's resilience amid increasing regional tension. His Royal Highness Crown Prince Al Hussein the Regent visited the General Command of the Jordan Armed Forces Arab Army. The Crown Prince was briefed on a number of operational, logistical and training-related issues of concern to the armed forces. The Regent listened to a briefing on the procedures and techniques used to enhance border security and the efforts made by the armed forces to implement their strategic plans efficiently and effectively to address security challenges. Foreign Minister Ayman al-Safadi took part in the preparatory meeting of the Arab Islamic Ministerial Committee tasked with international efforts to stop Israel's war on Gaza. The meeting was held on the sidelines of the 79th session of the UN General Assembly in New York. Safadi also held a series of meetings with Arab and foreign counterparts, including the foreign ministers of Bahrain, Sierra Leone and Montenegro, the Parliamentary State Secretary at the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development in Germany, and the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. Talks during the meetings focused on the situation in Gaza, escalation in the West Bank, the Syrian refugee crisis, and the continued Israeli violations against the Palestinian people. The Foreign Ministry announced the return of Jordanian citizens Mislih al-Udat and Hussein al-Naimat to Jordan today at dawn. The two were detained by Israeli authorities following the September 8th shooting incident that took place on the Palestinian side of the King Hussein Bridge. The spokesman for the ministry, Sufyan Liqda, confirmed that the ministry has been following up on the citizens' conditions since the incident occurred and coordinating with the relevant Jordanian authorities to secure their return as soon as possible. Lebanon's health ministry said at least 274 people have been killed and more than 1,000 others wounded today, including children, women and medics in Israeli strikes that targeted South Lebanon. Meanwhile, the Israeli military said it had targeted more than 300 Hezbollah sites in Lebanon in a wave of airstrikes that began early today. In response, Hezbollah said it had launched rockets at Israeli military posts. And over to the Gaza Strip, Israeli occupation forces have committed 3 massacres against Palestinians over the last 24 hours, killing at least 24 Palestinians and injuring 60 others. About a year into Israel's unrelenting onslaught, the health ministry in Gaza said the death toll has risen to 41,455 Palestinians, while close to 95,900 others have been wounded. Thank you so much for your time.